Okay, part of critical reading is actually learning how to read a story. I think a lot of us, the best way for us to learn is to actually have somebody read to us. So, we're going to read Let Steroids into the Hall of Fame. It's on page 21 in your patterns text, and you can read along with me. That'd be great. All right, so let's start with the title, Let Steroids into the Hall of Fame. Well, that tells us right off the bat our author's stance, right? Zev Chafets believes that we should let steroids into the Hall of Fame, which isn't actually the most popular way to take this topic. Most people are like, no, steroids, bad. They should be out of our sports. But so this should lend an interesting perspective into the debate. So, when you approach a text, you should always begin with the author information. That tells you a couple of things. Credibility. It also gives you their accolades, whether or not they are even trained or knowledgeable about the subject that they're writing about. You know, these days people can go on the internet and blog about anything that they may or may not have any experience or knowledge of. So, let's learn about Zev. He's a versatile journalist and novelist. He's an American-Israeli writer. He was born in Pontiac, Michigan in 1947. After graduating from the University of Michigan, he moved to Israel, where he worked for the government press office and founded the Jerusalem Report magazine. He has written for many publications, including the New York Times Sunday Magazine and the Los Angeles Times. Chafets writes regularly about sports, politics, and the Middle East. He has also written 5 works of fiction. His most recent books are Cooperstown Confidential, Heroes, Rogues, and the Inside Story of the Baseball Hall of Fame, 2009, and Roger Ailes' Off Camera, 2013. So, this gentleman has written several books. Most of them have been about sports, so this lends him a certain amount of, I would say, knowledge about the subject. So, I'm probably going to believe what he tells me, and I'm going to take his opinion to heart. Now, you'll notice the next part is a little background on steroids. If you're like me and you're really not a big sports fan, it gives you a little background information. So, let's learn about it. Background on steroids. In 1991, then Commissioner of Baseball Fay Vincent added steroids to the list of banned substances under Major League Baseball's drug policy, although the league instituted no testing program at the time. The 1990s and early 2000s witnessed an explosion of home run hitting, highlighted in 1998 by the home run race between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, both of whom used steroids. In the years since, Major League Baseball has cracked down on steroid use under scrutiny and pressure from Congress. Steroids, which increase muscle mass and endurance, can have dangerous side effects, including depression, mood swings, liver damage, and cancer. Wow, that's a bad time, but, you know, some people risk it. So, now we have a pretty good background knowledge on steroids, even if you approach this article with little to no knowledge, which I did when I first read it. So, let us begin. When the Baseball Hall of Fame commemorates its 70th anniversary with an exhibition game in Cooperstown, New York on Sunday, 5 of its members will play on the National Field of Dreams. Okay, first I want to give you guys a disclaimer. If I butcher any of these sports individuals, these athletes' names, I apologize. I don't know much about sports, so we're just going to go with it. At least 2 of them, Paul Molitor and Ferguson Jenkins, were busted in the 1980s for using cocaine. Molitor later said he was sure he wasn't the only player on the team using drugs. Well, yikes. He threw some of his other teammates under the bus. So, as we start out, he gives us an interesting little hook, right? He tells us that although these 2 gentlemen were busted, that there are actually more players on the team using the drugs. Now, this tends to snag our interest as reader and kind of makes us say to ourselves, Tell me more. So it's always good to start out an essay with a good bait. I always think, like, when you're fishing, you want to use the right bait. And as a writer, you want to use the right bait to intrigue your audience. All right, let us continue. Given what we know about baseball's drug habit, the remark sounds quaint. This week's report that Sammy Sosa tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs in 2003 is only the latest in a long string of revelations. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, Mark McGwire, what great players haven't been linked to drug use? Now, you'll notice here he uses what we call exemplification. He gives us a list of other players who also have allegedly used steroids in the past. Now, he does this for a couple of reasons. First, he wants to let us know that a lot of our familiar players use a substance. Now, I think it's almost sort of a way to tell us, hey, look, everybody does it. No big deal. All right. Now, let's continue. Since the dawn of baseball, players have used whatever substances they believed would help them perform better, heal faster, or relax during a long and stressful season. As far back as 1889, the pitcher Pud Galvin ingested monkey testosterone. During Prohibition, Grover Cleveland Alexander, also a pitcher, calmed his nerves with federally banned alcohol, and no less an expert than Bill Veeck, who owned several major league teams, said that Alexander was a better pitcher drunk than sober. Wow. Okay, so it gives us an example again. Now, we have to remember and keep in mind that he is for the use of steroids in sports. So he's given us these examples of, hey, it's no big deal. See, this guy did it. Oh, he was even better at it. So he's sort of, it's almost like he is desensitizing us to the situation. In 1961, during his home run race with Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle developed a sudden abscess that kept him on the bench. It came from an infected needle used by Max Jacobson, a quack who injected Mantle with a home brew containing steroids and speed. In his autobiography, Hank Aaron admitted once taking an amphetamine tablet during a game. The Pirates' John Milner testified at a drug dealer's trial that his teammate, Willie Mays, kept red juice, a liquid form of speed, in his locker. Mays denied it. After he retired, Sandy Koufax admitted that he was often half high on the mound from the drugs he took for his ailing left arm. For decades, baseball beat writers, the Hall of Fame's designated electoral college, shielded the players from scrutiny. When the internet and exposés by two former ball players, Jim Bouton and Jose Canseco, allowed fans to see what was really happening, the baseball writers were revealed as dupes or stooges. In a rage, they formed a posse to drive the drug users out of the game. Now, this is really interesting because when the internet comes out and it starts giving information to the public about ball players using and that sort of thing, all of a sudden the audience becomes concerned. We're like, hey, it's almost like what we don't know can't hurt us. But when we start finding out things, when people start coming out of the woodwork, sports fans are starting to kind of get up in arms about the situation. Now, ironically, it was the Hall of Famers who shielded these players from the sort of negative publicity of drug use and that sort of thing. But they sort of turncoat on them whenever it came out that this was a problem. And they were like, oh, wait, this is bad. We agree with you, public. This is bad, and we must put an end to it. So it's almost like they threw their players under the bus. But today's superstars have lawyers and a union. They know how to use the news media, and they have plenty of money. The only way to punish them is to deny them a place in Cooperstown. The punishment has already been visited on Mark McGwire, and many more are on deck. That's a really clever little "more on deck." I like that because they are on deck, kind of like to walk the plank, but they're also on deck as a term in baseball. So this makes no sense. On any given day, the stands are packed with youngsters on Adderall and Ritalin. stimulants used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and college students who use Provigil, an anti-narcolepsy drug, as a study aid. The guy who sings the national anthem has probably taken a beta blocker to calm his stage fright. Like it or not, chemical enhancement is here to stay, and it is much part of the national game as 550 hot dogs, free agency, and Tommy John elbow surgery. So this whole paragraph is almost like, well, everybody else is doing it, even your kid's doing it. So it's almost a very juvenile playground argument, but it works because they're facts, right? So as a reader, we have to think to ourselves, oh, you have a point there. Okay, let's continue. Purists say that steroids alter the game, but since the hall opened its doors, baseball has never stopped changing. Batters now wear body padding and helmets. The pitcher's mound has risen and fallen. Bats have more pop. Night games affect visibility. Players stay in shape in the off-season. Expansion has altered the game's geography, and its demography has changed beyond recognition. Babe Ruth never faced a black pitcher. As Chris Rock put it, Ruth's record consisted of 714 affirmative action home runs. This doesn't diminish Ruth's accomplishment, but it puts it into context. So basically, we're talking about purists say that steroids alter the game. So what Chafets has done here is he has given us a refutation. And this is where he takes something that he knows his audience is going to say. People that do not believe steroids should be allowed, people who use steroids should not be allowed into the Hall of Fame. He's saying, okay, I know that you are going to say that steroids alter the game. However, and then he tells you why you're wrong. And that's brilliant. Let's continue. Statistics changed too. In 1908, Ed Walsh pitched 464 innings. In 2008, CC Sabathia led the majors with 253. So what? They were both first under the prevailing conditions of the time. But despite these changes, or because of them, Americans continue to love baseball. Fans will accept anything except the sense that they are being lied to. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because the Hall of Famers, we were fine with it as long as we didn't know it was happening. But when we found out that there was extensive steroid use in our sports, that's when it bothered us. Chemical enhancements won't kill the game. It is the cover-up that could be fatal. Baseball, led by the Hall of Fame, needs to accept this and replace mythology and spin with realism and honesty. If everyone has access to the same drugs and training methods, and the fans are told what these are, then the field is level and fans will be able to interpret what they are seeing on the diamond and in the box scores. The purest last argument is that players' use of performance-enhancing drugs set a bad example for young athletes. Now, at the beginning of this paragraph, we have our second refutation. He's telling us again what our audience is what the people who oppose his argument are going to say, and he meets it head on, and he's going to give us the reason why that's not a good argument. He continues, but baseball players aren't children. They are adults in a very stressful and competitive profession. If they want to use anabolic steroids or human growth hormone or bull's testosterone, it should be up to them. As for children, the government can regulate their use of these substances as they do with tobacco, alcohol, and prescription medicine. The Baseball Hall of Fame, which started as a local tourist attraction and a major league publicity stunt, has since become a national field of dreams, and now a battlefield. If it surrenders to the moralists who want to turn back the clock to some imagined golden era and excommunicates the greatest stars anyone has ever seen, it will suffer the fate of all battlefields located at the wrong side of history. Obscurity. Man, he left that essay with a bang, didn't he? He threatened that our baseball will become obscure. for any true fan, that must be terrible. Please don't take my baseball away. So this is a really great introductory essay for us to read as a class to see how your essays can work for you, how they can motivate others to believe in your agenda. So I think this one's a really good one. And also, I wanted this to be an introduction on how to become a critical reader. I think a lot of times we tend to look at a text and we start reading, and then like maybe 4 pages later, we realize that we do not remember a single word that we've read for the last 10 minutes. I'm guilty of this as well. But if you'll really become active with the essay, stop, think about it, write little notes in the margin. It'll help you become a better critical reader. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed it.